it's just, I think if a lot of them had our number sheet and be able to see what was actually happening inside the business, they wouldn't have necessarily got themselves into those situations in the first place, because they could have seen like the leading indicator, they could have seen what was happening, they could have seen what was going on. And it just gives you a bit more of a connection between the market. I think the worst thing you can do with these high tickets is give your marketing to an agency and say, go at it. Because like a volume retailer or a compounding brand, there is some connection between the Google Ads account and the Facebook Ads account and the business. But in a high ticket one, it's almost like a completely different world. Yes, you've got to advertise at the top end, but what you see in the ad account is almost completely unrelated to actually what happens in the business. And so if you just let the agency just run it in a normal way, and they will, because agencies most of the time think there is a one size fits all, and they'll run it as a volume retailer. They'll run the account as a volume retailer, even if you're a high ticket company, and they will run it with their rules, and they'll run it in a certain way, the way they think about things, and you just will never optimize what you need to optimize. Like some of our brands that are high ticket, they have completely different setups in Google, particularly Google Ads, like completely different. And I was telling you about the analogy of, like, say you're doing super high ticket with super luxury, like really expensive stuff. Like if you go to an airport, you go to Singapore airport, you walk one shop's like a Louis Vuitton, then there's an Armani, and then there's a Hermes and all that kind of stuff. And you look at them and you think, well, there's no one's in them, but they're effectively adverts for those brands. And what they're trying to do is get their brands in front of rich people. And so, like, if you've got those super high brands, a lot of the time it's actually putting your products in front of people with the money to buy them and making sure you're there, where it's not necessarily, you've got to be careful where you spend your money, basically, is what I'm saying. Like the Google Display Network.
I think, it's completely different, isn't it? But I think a high ticket and a higher margin is a more attractive than a high ticket, low margin. I think, obviously, it goes without saying. But, it seems pretty obvious. But, obviously, these businesses that you just mentioned, I mean, they are running, there's like a double margin, because the shops will have their own margin, and then half of them will be franchisees and all the rest of it. So it is different. But I think ultimately,
also people buy in the country. The reason the shops are there, just this kind of tangent, the reason the shops are there, people will buy in the country, and then they'll pick it up from the shop inside the airport, and then they won't pay tax on it and things like that. So that's there's a lot of things going on with those shops that you don't see from the front end.